All right, who's ready? Who's ready to talk about Ben Shapiro? You? Are you ready? I'm not. Okay, so here's the thing. A preface for this. Ben Shapiro, conservative podcaster extraordinaire. I have talked about him a lot on this channel, either in focus or in passing. Now, speaking of passing, he's going to be talking about J.K. Rowling, which it's 2021, so this has to do with trans people. Again, always. Literally always. It is the hill that conservatives are trying to die on right now. And I don't understand it. But before we get into any of that, as always, guys, we do have to get into that fan art section. So let's go ahead and show you guys. This one is from Memory Martin, the completed. They said, feel free to use this as a model later if you would like. This is Memory Martin showing off their skills with a Christmas Suris model. Different colored hair, but definitely a very adorable outfit. The next piece that we have, we are going to show two this time. This one is a piece from Glubbinex. Now, you should recognize this outfit. This piece was done before this outfit ever made it to a model. This is actually the piece of artwork that did a variety of things. This is the piece of artwork that guaranteed that the Virgin Killer Sweater model was going to be made in the first place. This is also the piece of artwork that guaranteed that Glubbinex was going to be one of the people that I commissioned for work later on down the road. Just so you guys know, a bit of a sneak peek for people who are on YouTube, we do have a bit of merch that is going to be coming. This is one of many pieces. This is also a piece done by Glubbinex, though with a lot higher detail because it is a commissioned piece. Again, thank you very much for the fan art, Glub. Thank you very much, Memory Martin. As always, if you guys want your fan art to be shown in future episodes, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section. That said, that's over in the Discord. But where you are right now, we have to roll an intro. And now that we are here, for better or worse, we do have to talk about our lovely conservative podcasty boy, the nasally lord himself. Let's go ahead. Take it away, Ben.
Here's the thing. The culture that is created by the radicals in the schools, well, it bleeds up to every aspect of our culture. This is kind of an amazing story, and it is indicative of just where we stand as a culture right now. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone stars and filmmaker Chris Columbus are reuniting for a previously announced 20th anniversary retrospective on HBO Max. There's one notable omission from the list of participants: the person who created all of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling.
Right. So, before we crack into that, crack not, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an ada, you fucking monster. But more importantly, let's go ahead and talk about the implications here. Yes, a retrospective on the Harry Potter series, though this is about the movies, without the creator of the books, J.K. Rowling. I understand the want to bring the original creator in. I do. But considering the hot water she's been in lately, I also can understand the omission. It's like, let me ask you a question. If you enjoy mythos of things like Cthulhu, I can understand that because, you know, that's kind of like foundational literature for a lot of sci-fi and just conceptual horror that we have nowadays. But when you're thinking of eldritch horror, when you're thinking of that kind of stuff, you have to remember who made it. Now, of course, you couldn't bring him on for an actual thing here right now, and I don't know why his name is escaping me. H.P. Lovecraft, there we go. Why did my brain not think why? I don't understand why my brain was just like, yes, fill in the blanks with everything except the man's actual name, because you just can't. Anywho, H.P. Lovecraft. Now, if you wanted to do anything about the Cthulhu mythos, you might want to bring the creator in, unless we're talking about the modern day, where mayhap you might not want to bring H.P. Lovecraft on to talk about stuff like that, because let's just go ahead and face it. If you already know what he named his cat, then you already know why you probably don't want to bring him in for a special in 2021. Now, of course, it would take necromancy to bring him back in the modern day, but much like with J.K. Rowling, there are certain beliefs of hers right now that do not necessarily translate to good PR. So, let's go ahead and continue with Ben Shapiro.
Why, of course? Well, we know the answer why. J.K. Rowling says that men exist and women exist.
That's not all she says. Woman literally made an entire TERF manifesto denying scientific consensus on trans people. But okay, sure. The idea that there is something innate, some innate essence of womanhood was so important for her to die on that hill of, that she wanted to alienate and spark all kinds of political issues where trans people are concerned. I'm not gonna lie. There is a tinfoil hatty part of me that wants to think that J.K. Rowling is part of the reason why we refer to the UK as TERF Island, but I'm fairly certain she's a symptom and not a cause.
She is, as they say, a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Yep.
When it became a radical feminist ideal to point out that women exist is beyond me.
That's not... Okay, this is very disingenuous, Ben. So what Ben likes to do is he likes to paint his opposition as being ludicrous. How could you possibly ever think that? That thing that you're thinking right there, nobody would ever think that. Why would they think that thing? Because this thing is an obvious thing, and if you don't think this thing, then what the hell is wrong with you? That's Ben Shapiro's entire style. Now, the thing is, and the thing to actually note when dealing with Ben, is if you know what he's talking about going in, you can kind of disassemble this language. When he's saying that women are women, what he's meaning, what he's actually trying to communicate to you, the audience, is that trans women aren't women. He's ignoring the part where cis women are the only people who are women in his particular worldview. Now, considering that women is a gendered term and gender is a social construct, and, well, Ben apparently can't wrap his head around that, or refuses to, we can see why he comes to the conclusions that he does. But here's the thing. He is positing this to an audience of people who already agree with the idea that trans women aren't women. So when he says that women are women, they go, yeah, that's obviously what's true. This is his entire shtick. He'll say a platitude that sounds intuitively obvious until you think about it for about 3 microseconds. And after you've let the thought about what Ben Shapiro has said and done marinate in your mind for a brief bit, you kind of come to a conclusion that, oh, wait a minute. Intuition is the only thing you have to go off of. You're relying on my intuition. You're not relying on logic. You are using logic to prey on someone's intuition. This is the difference between type 2 and type 1 thinking. I still need to make that video. Anyway, continue.
It's insane. So, according to the left, you are now a radical feminist crazy if you oppose pornography and believe women exist.
Okay, so here's the thing. Pornography, opposing porn, not the porn industry, but porn, is an anti-woman position because by and large, there are more female sex workers than male sex workers. And with that knowledge, if you were to ban all pornography, oppose all pornography, the sex workers who would be discriminated against largely would be female. You would be disenfranchising them from their jobs, and you'd be taking that away from society. Sex work is real work. And if you don't think it is, then why is it okay to sell your body for labor in another fashion at a McDonald's, but it's not okay to sell your body for labor when it involves your genitalia? These are both still labor. I can cook from home, I can fuck from home, but you can do both for money too. But continue.
So, welcome to the traditional conservative side of the aisle, J.K. Rowling. Harry Potter's 20th anniversary return to Hogwarts will stream January 1st on HBO Max with a linear debut on TBS and Cartoon Network in the spring. The failure to name it Rowling is interesting. Rowling sparked backlash, according to The Hollywood Reporter, from the trans community after saying that transgender individuals should be defined by their biological sex.
Right. So here's the thing. Trans people, if they want to be defined by their biological sex, that is their prerogative. They can, but by and large, they don't. Think about a trans person. If you've ever met a trans person, there's a couple of angles they might actually have with this particular conversation if you are talking with them about being trans. Scenario A, they'll talk to you about how sex is actually bimodal and it is not as cut and dry as you think. Scenario B, they will instead have the conversation about gender and go, I don't give a fuck about what my sex is, says, or does. That can sit in a bucket somewhere. I don't care. They will leave the conversation at gender, about the social construction of who they are as a person, not boiling everything down to biology as if we are actually enslaved to the limits of our biology as it is in the first fucking place. If you think that you are limited by what your biology does, then I'm sorry. Prosthetic limbs, glasses, contact lenses, spinal surgery, freaking any surgery at all. These are all advancements we have so that we don't have to be stuck with our particular biological limitations. HRT is no different than any of these things. Top and bottom surgery is no different than any of these things. And some trans people don't choose to get either of those in the first place. But none of that matters. What matters is continuing the cringe fest.
Well, actually, no. What she said is that their biological sex is the only way that you can label people by sex. Proclaiming that a male is a female is idiotic, which is...
Okay, so did you notice what he did here? Did you notice what he did here? We'll listen to it again because it's very interesting what he just did.
Individuals should be defined by their biological sex. Well, actually, no. What she said is that their biological sex is the only way that you can label people by sex.
What kind of a statement is that? Your sex is the only way to label you by sex. It's a nothing statement. Nothing was said there. Again, remember, one of the types of conversations you will have when you're talking with trans people is that they're talking about gender, not sex. This is a different concept entirely. Ben avoids this by just saying sex is sex. A statement that means nothing. It communicates nothing. And yet, the people in his base will hear it and they will cheer.
Proclaiming that a male is a female is idiotic, which is true.
All right, so again, if you're saying male and female, we're talking about terms that are rooted entirely in biology. That scoots us to the other conversation about how biology is not as cut and dry as just male and female when it comes to people in general. Intersex people exist. And for the brainiac who's going to come into the comment section and say, that's not a third gen, I don't think that it's a third sex. But they also exist. To say that it is a third one is to ignore the fact that there are multiple different ways that we determine sex. There's gametal representation, there's gonadal representation, phenotypical representation, there's chromosomal representation. All these factors go into determining what sex is, and even then, here's the other fun kicker. Here's the other really fun kicker. We assigned those labels descriptively anyway. Just like we did with gender. They are only as rigid as they're only as rigid as the defining factors that we have chosen to be there. And this is where you get categorically intersex people coming into that part of the conversation going, well, what the fuck do you label me? But ignoring that, we're going to stick in gender and point out that, again, this is a vacuous statement. Sex is sex means nothing.
Sources close to the project note the retrospective will focus on the creation of the film and the central cast and team. Rowling will be featured in archival footage. She just won't make a new appearance. So they'll use the old footage of J.K. Rowling, but we have to pretend that she died years ago.
That's not what they said, Ben. They didn't say they pretended that she's going to die. They just said that they're going to properly credit her where it's due, but they're not going to be bringing her on again, most likely, because of the types of shit that she's been getting into now. I'm sorry, Ben, but you have to accept the fact that the Harry Potter films and the books are two separate properties. If they were doing this while talking about the books, then maybe you might have an argument, except I don't have to talk to J.K. Rowling to do a retrospective on the Harry Potter books on my channel either. I could interview any number of people for a retrospective, but just choose not to grab Rowling. It doesn't matter. This is a nothing burger. But Ben wants you to think that it's very important.
Before she started with this whole women exist thing. It's
not just a women exist thing. Trans people believe women exist. Women exist is not a fucking radical statement. You're pretending that we're pretending that it is.
Erasing some of the most prominent people in our culture over the fact that they believe that women exist.
Wait, Ben. How is J.K. Rowling being erased? She's literally being featured in the special. You just did a double thing there. For her to have been erased from that special, no footage of J.K. would have to be shown. But they are, in fact, showing J.K. Rowling in there. They're just not getting new footage of her. That's not erasing her. Is it erasing a fucking movie if I watch it and all the exact same actors that were there, but we digitally enhanced one of them? Did that erase all the other actors that just have their old grimy 480p CRT footage? No, it doesn't. That's stupid, Ben. That's dumb.
That is where we are right now. And this is part of a broader censorious push by the left to just get rid of anyone who disagrees with them.
Who's getting rid of JK? JK's a multi-millionaire. She can literally do whatever she wants on a yacht away from us. It doesn't matter. Nobody's getting rid of JK. They're just not in a single property. And
it's the reason why you see the left pushing on Facebook and pushing on YouTube and pushing on Twitter to bar people who disagree with them. Shutting off the
Wait, bar people who disagree with them. Could you, I would like Ben to define that, because it sounds like he's talking about deplatforming. And again, Rowling has not been deplatformed in this particular case. She's just not being invited onto a special. That's not the same thing. Though I think this is Ben trying to make arguments based on his experience of being barred from certain college campuses, which, yeah, I'm sorry, Ben should not be speaking in front of college kids. I do not want this man near anybody.
Access to the public is the only way of allowing radicals to win. Because if these battles are fought in the public sphere, the left loses. The radical left will lose.
Wait, Ben, these battles have been being fought in the public sphere for ages. That's where you lose repeatedly. The only battles in the public sphere that Ben Shapiro wins are the ones he has on college campuses with ill-prepared, fresh out of high school, just ditzes. Those are the ways in which Ben Shapiro wins. Those are the terms of engagement in which he has advantage. People on the left have been doing shit in the public sphere for ages, Ben.
Most Americans, most people on Earth do not believe that men can become women. Most people.
Wait, but Ben, that's a fallacy. That's argumentum ad populum. That's a fallacy. That means nothing. Most people believing one thing or another means jack shit. Once upon a time, most people believed the Earth was flat, Ben. Do I just throw the time machine in here and suddenly that's the truth? No. That's a perspective. That's wrong.
In the West, do not believe that you should be primarily identified as an oppressor or a member of an oppressed class based on an immutable characteristic.
Nobody thinks that you are an oppressor or oppressed based on an immutable characteristic. If you're talking about what I think you are, which is intersectionality, then all that has to do is with likelihoods. If you are black and a woman and from an impoverished neighborhood, it is more likely that there is oppression going on in your life, either there or trickled down from back when it affected you to get your family in that situation in the first place. But that's about likelihoods. Has nothing to do with individuals. You must be oppressed because you don't have a lot of money and you are black and you are female. That's not what any of that means. But that's me extrapolating. I don't know if that's exactly what Ben is talking about. I think it is. Maybe I'm wrong.
Most people don't believe that. And so that leaves the radical left with one choice. Try to shut down everybody who disagrees.
Wait. No, we don't have to shut people down when they disagree. We can do exactly what I'm doing right here and argue about why you're wrong. We can present our case in the court of public opinion. What Ben Shapiro's doing is he's playing on this idea called the silent majority. The idea that his opinions are the common sense opinions held by every good American blue-collar man and woman, and by proxy, anything else is ivory tower liberal bullshit. And when he uses this appeal, it lets you feel like you're part of that silent majority. You would be winning if only more of your voices were, I don't know, donating to dailywire.com or some shit. I've been getting a lot of really weird emails from the frickin' conservative side of stuff. It's going to be a video soon.
And they're becoming more and more overt about this. It's not like they're hiding the ball anymore, right? Whether it is trying to get professors fired for mouthing platitudes like merit ought to matter more than race, or whether...
Okay, so the thing he's talking about there is being angry at people who are okay with things like affirmative action, or people who, like, let's say you've got somebody who gets a scholarship for being black. Ben Shapiro's against shit like that. He doesn't like any shit like that, despite the fact that those things are good. Like, here's the thing. The world in which a scholarship is offered to somebody for being an African-American in the United States is not the world in which a scholarship was denied to me, Suris, the cishet white guy. That money was not going to come to me either way. But this is that whole thing where, like, hey, you have to be scared that other guy's taking your cookie. That thing, that's what Ben's doing. It's really boring.
You're talking about Nicole Wallace on MSNBC, suggesting that Fox News is like a terror group. I gotta tell you, it is incredible to watch the left just unmask in real time.
How are we unmasking? Fox News literally has had to do things like claim legally that their most popular host of a show, Tucker Carlson, cannot be taken seriously on live television in order to protect themselves, because he has done things that can be considered terror on live television with his fucking rhetoric. They have to rely on the fact that they can hide behind him being hyperbolic in court. Now, I wonder how long that's going to work, because that's not been working very well for Alex Jones.
I don't know how you can talk about liars and conspiracy theorists without talking about Fox News. I was a Republican. I think they've done more damage to the party than anything else.
I'm sure you do, but if we want to go through that, I think there are liars and conspiracy theorists on MSNBC and on CNN also. So maybe I'll write a book about all that, but that's not what this book is about. In that section of the book, I'm talking to Republicans about the way I believe we need to deal with media to be most effective for winning. The conspiracy theorists and truth deniers, which nobody else on either side of the aisle is writing about right now, other than me. No one else is.
Okay, I'm just going to say this right now. Every time somebody says nobody else is writing about this than me, every time that this happens, it is either a lie or a boast. The scenarios in which it is a lie is where they know that other people are writing about it and talking about it too, but they have to present themselves as being special. Or it's just a boast pretending that they are more important than they are. Or in either scenario, they're writing about something nobody's talking about because nobody gives a shit. Now, in this case, he's talking about there being conspiracy theorists on both sides of the aisle. I hate to tell you this, but everyone has read about that. Literally everyone. There are conspiracy theorists on both sides of the aisle. There are assholes on both sides of the aisle. Nobody is denying that. For every fascist, there's a tanky. For every tanky, there's a fascist. Yes, we know. We get it. That's not new. Why is Ben even including this clip?
Is writing about that.
But do you want to solve them? Is my question. If you want to solve the proliferation of conspiracy theories without dealing with Fox News, it's like solving terrorism without dealing with the terrorists.
Well, look, that's your opinion. I disagree with your opinion.
Oh, okay. So that's what's happening here. She's pointing out that Fox News is a conspiracy theorist wet dream masquerading as a news organization, which they are. They actually legally have to show themselves as news entertainment, not actually news. But she seems to be communicating that point, and he's like, no, I think you're wrong. The problem is both sides. And yeah, you're right. Both sides are a problem. But if we look at the last couple of decades, most of the problems where conspiracy theories have been concerned have come not exclusively, but have come majorly? No. Majorative? Why am I having trouble with words today? What the fuck? The majority of them come from conspiratorial right-wing sources. Cultural Marxism is just the cultural Bolshevism of the Nazi days. Most of everything that you get from Alex Jones is right-wing bullshit. QAnon was right-wing bullshit. Anti-Semitism, which leads into conspiracies about adrenochrome and globalists, has all been right-wing bullshit. Now, don't get me wrong, the left has been on some shit too, but I'm not talking about both sides being equal. I'm talking about the fact that most of it has in fact come from the right. The pushback here seems to be about the fact that you are not going to be able to solve that without solving one of the outlets that propagates it to the moderate right. There's kind of the key there. Is Fox News as bad as the Daily Stormer? No, not in content, but they are in reach. Because unfortunately, you do have things like Tucker Carlson's show being one of the most popular things on television, most certainly the most popular thing on Fox's network. That kind of reach is insane. With things like the Daily Stormer, yes, the things you get in those articles are way worse than the things you find in Fox News, generally speaking, but you're also not reaching the same amount of people. Go to somebody randomly on the street and ask them if they know what Fox News is. They do. Ask them if they know what a Chan board is. Well, if they say yes, the likelihood of you wanting to continue that conversation with them probably has decreased significantly. I am convinced half the reason we were never supposed to talk about B was because we all knew we were fucking losers and didn't want to talk to each other in real life because, dear God, that would make us all ashamed of ourselves looking into a bunch of collective mirrors. But that's just me. Though I do want to be thankful for people whose friends as far as I got from the Pokemon threads on 4chan. Anyway, continuing.
Okay, so Fox News is the promulgator of conspiracy theories, says the anchor.
Not the A. They are a huge symptom. It's like going, hey, there's a bunch of cancer here. Let's cut it out. And you go, no, let's not do that. Like, no, Fox is one of the problems there.
On MSNBC, which spent 4 long years claiming that the Steele dossier was probably real. Absolutely incredible stuff.
Yeah, the idea that there are conspiracy theorists on the left is not news, Ben. We're not talking. You can't just go, look, they claimed one conspiracy theory was real. Therefore, no, that's not how this works, Ben. This is about magnitude. This is about scale. But if there's one thing that this episode has shown, it is that Ben Shapiro can only do one thing, and that is think in binaries. if you say 10 conspiracy theories and this other person says one conspiracy theory, to Ben, you both have said conspiracy theories, you're equally damned. Or the obvious joke, he doesn't understand what trans people are.
Of course, the goal of saying that Fox News is like a terrorist group is to get Fox News thrown off the air.
I don't know if that's 100% true. Now, granted, do I want Fox News off the air? Oh, fucking absolutely. I think that entire organization just needs to just cease existing. This is both a terrible and an accurate analogy to how binary systems work. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to torture you. But while I would assume that the world might be a better place without Fox News, there is no guarantee that somebody else would not just fill that power gap. But regardless of that particular doomer thought, Ben does not have any evidence here that this person is trying to get rid of Fox News, to take them off the air. But he makes a lot of money convincing you that that's the case.
They've been very clear about all of this. This is the goal. If they can't win, then they will attempt to silence. That is what they're going to do at the school board level. It's why they are attempting to rip your kids away from you.
Who's ripping your kids away from... Wait, Ben, where did this one come from? Hold on. I am missing something.
It is why they are intent on indoctrinating your children without you being able to see over their shoulder.
Okay, so Ben, I got a question. So, okay, there's a couple ways I can look at this. There's three ways. Scenario A, you are concerned about parents whose children are getting indoctrinated, and that's bad. Okay, cool. That's good faith. Let's go a little less good faith. You understand that there are creationist parents who are paranoid that their children might learn things like evolution and actual science, and despite your positions on those things, it is very convenient and even financially beneficial for you to tap into that paranoia of the evangelical right. That's a little bad faith. Oh, what's the other one? What's the other bad faith interpretation here? Oh, right. Ben, you actually happen to believe wholeheartedly that if you pontificate on the terrors of children receiving bog standard public education, then maybe you will be able to convince people to just be educated by nice curated material that you approve of. Things like, say, PragerU, for instance. Now, PragerU actually does do supplementary stuff for homeschool programs now. So between that and the A. Becca Christian book curriculum, maybe we can get all of America indoctrinated into right-wing conspiratorial creationist nuttery. But unfortunately, Ben, my position is that it is more likely that you are preying on an audience that is terrified of things they do not understand. Parents are terrified their children might learn about the gender spectrum because the parents don't understand it. They're terrified about Common Core education because they don't understand it. They're terrified about this, that, or the other thing in the classroom because they're not there and they can't shelter your child. But as somebody who grew up in an evangelical household, I implore you, Ben, it is better for kids to learn things outside of just what their parents teach them, outside of just what their parents approve of. Because if I only learned just what my parent approved of, then I would still think the earth was 6,000 goddamn years old, Ben. And I would also think that I deserved to have everything handed to me as the male head of the household. And I mean that in the most abusive way possible. I know the person I was. I know what got me out. Exposure and education to things that are outside of your political paradigm. It helped a lot. But there you are, peddling the status quo, because in so doing, you can make a very fine dollar.
The goal is to control the entire narrative in every aspect of American life. And they will do that either by top-down stranglehold on institutions.
Like what?
Or they will do it by essentially telling you that it's no business of yours how they raise your children.
Actually, in many cases, yeah, no, it is no business of the parent. I'm sorry. I hate to say it this way, Ben, but if I'm a science teacher and I am teaching a child about biology and I tell them that, hey, we have this thing called radiometric dating that we can use to measure the age of fossilized organisms, and we can use that to determine how long ago they lived, and that lifespan just so happens to cascade past that convenient 6,400 year point. It is no fucking business of the conservative evangelical creationist parent. It is 0-bit their business to intervene on that. I'm sorry.
Well, the backlash is coming, and it's coming strong, and it should come, because this is the fight of our time, and it's the fight for the next generation.
And there is the fear-mongering. He has to rope you in. Now it is a war, and a war that you must fight. Now, how are you going to fight this war? Well, I have gotten a lot of emails from Daily Wire, and usually it comes down to some form of please donate to them. Please feed their machine. Please make them constantly able to afford quail dinners or whatever the fuck rich people eat. I don't fucking know. I have takeout Chinese here. Look, if you watch a lot of Ben Shapiro, you start to notice some patterns in what he does. And a lot of what he does is fear-mongering. He's trying to convince you that there is a nebulous enemy out there. It just happens to be politically aligned with the left. And if you do not snuff it out now, it's going to rot America to its core. A great majority of his content relies on that principle, and the ways that he demonstrates that he's right do not tend to be by talking with people who are very heavily politically engaged and invested. He tends to talk to people who are in their first few years of college, in the middle of an auditorium, where he gets to control the mic, the podium, and everything, and most importantly, the time. You can wrestle a lot out of Ben Shapiro, and other people have, if they sit in a room with him for an hour with a camera and no control given to him over the amount of time they are allowed to speak and inquire. But if he's allowed only 5-minute quirky segments in the middle of an auditorium, or even better yet, on his show where there can't be pushback, then he is able to create this narrative that he is the cool kid's philosopher. And I am not using that term ironically. That is literally the title that was given to him like 10 fucking years ago in a bunch of really, really awkwardly written articles. That said, this is where I hand it off to you. What do you think? Do you think that I'm being way too harsh on Ben? Do you think that I'm being disingenuous where he's concerned? Or do you think that maybe I have a point? I don't know. Just comment section. If you hate what I'm talking about, you've already told me. Do it. Did Pro Brick Flop Ben Shapiro's cool as hell? Only in the sense that his IQ is quite room temperature, if not frigid. But with that said, as always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want access to behind-the-scenes content for the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. I do weekly vlogs over there where I give real-life updates to what's going on behind the scenes on the channel, stuff that you don't really get over here and even on Twitch. Patreon also helps the channel's stability a whole lot. Without Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Especially with the kind of content that I do, neither YouTube nor Twitch are the most stable sources of income. If you are a $20 and up patron, then you will be featured on the ending slides as shown in the beginning of the end credits. If you want to catch the streams where all this content comes from, then consider heading over to Twitch and following. And if you want to continue watching over here on YouTube, maybe consider clicking one of the end screen videos. And once again, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me over on my channel. I wouldn't be able to do literally anything that I'm doing over here on YouTube without each and every one of you. So thank you.